Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about the DC Marvel crossover tabletop role-playing game, specifically the Amelthia story arc. Okay, so the game that we're playing, this tabletop role-playing game, is the DC world with portals that have been opened up to the Marvel world. So that means that Marvel superheroes can be seen on the DC world side. We've never had player characters go over to the Marvel side, but if that ever happened, you would start seeing DC heroes on the Marvel side as well. So there's crossover between the superheroes. There's actually 5 books used in creating this Amelthia story arc. So when it comes to the powers for the specific heroes and villains, we use 2 specific tabletop role-playing games as sources to give us an idea of how you would actually build out correctly DC and Marvel tabletop role-playing game superheroes. I used as reference the Mutants and Masterminds DC Adventure book, okay, and then also tabletop role-playing game, and then also we use the Margaret Weiss Marvel tabletop role-playing game. And so those allowed us to give us a structure to see how you would actually stat these out. And then as far as the actual rules and actual play, we took all those conversions and we're running Index Card RPG, which is a very, very fast, smooth system. And that's what we're using to run this, okay? All right, so the Amelthia campaign, I'll give you an idea of who the player characters are playing. So each of the player characters have the ability, the players have the ability to play a player character from either, from a villain or a supervillain. As long as they act like a hero, a villain can be included as a player character. And so what we did was we actually, rolled essentially, so you could see the player characters have both options. Okay, now who can they actually choose? Well, right now, I said this game used 5 books to create, right? The 4th and 5th books are the Marvel and DC DK books. So they're these huge books. They're like really big. They're, a few hundred, they're like 400 or 500 pages long each. And they are DK graphic books, right? So DK does these guides where they list everything in a particular world. And so there's a DK guide for DC, and there's a DK guide for Marvel, and the players could choose anybody listed in either one of those books, and then they're going to have all the power set listed for that character, okay? So here's our player characters. Our player characters are Harley Quinn, played by John, and which is actually a DC character. And then we had Amazo, who is a DC character played by, Amazo is on the Marvel side, and he is being played by Ted. And then we also have Jericho, who is in the Teen Titans, being played by Dom. And then we also have Bill, who is playing his own unique build, not a Marvel or DC character, called Jumper, who has the ability to teleport. All right, so think a Nightcrawler without, the looking like a tiefling. All right, and then last we had a new player who came in, and this new player, Mike, was playing Muncher, and a Muncher is very unusual. I've never seen a hero like him. Muncher consumes people like Kirby, okay? And then when he consumes people, he does not get any of their powers. He has a power set where consuming a person actually triggers randomly one of his powers, right? And his power set was really unique. It had a lot of different crazy ideas in it. It was almost like a comedic character, and I was a little concerned with it when it was introduced. But whenever I have a new player, I don't want to do, I'm certainly not going to shut down their idea right away. I'm going to give it a try. And I'm really glad we did. Muncher actually turned out to be fun, but not game-breaking, and it didn't really disrupt the flow of the game. It's actually a really cool addition to the game. So we had Muncher, okay? So our game opened at Gotham Zoo, okay? And I explained what was happening at Gotham Zoo, and then the player characters were able to bring themselves in immediately at that situation and then interact with what was happening. So what was happening was, it's at the entrance of the Gotham Zoo. It's a bright sunny day, and these semis roll up in front of the zoo. The sides of the semis blow out, and Gorilla Grodd drops down, and he says, "Behold, the animal kingdom has arrived to end your tyranny and imprisonment of all the animals here." And at that point, Gorilla Grodd is introducing the Animal Kingdom, okay? Now, the Animal Kingdom is specifically a new supervillain group made up of all animal-themed villains, all right? And so there were 6 of them in total. Gorilla Grodd is clearly the leader. He has recruited King Shark, Viper, Cheetah, Rhino, and I think, did I get all of them in there? I think there might have been one more. And Black Tarantula. Sorry, Black Tarantula as well. And then behind them, like a few hundred feet behind them, an entire army of robotic animals are charging in behind them, right? And I kept it secret from the players. None of the players were able to guess it, but all of the robot animals that were charging the zoo were actually coming from Toyman, right? Toyman had created them. And Gorilla Grodd had paid Toyman to give themselves a little bit of a boost in their ability. So basically, and then Gorilla Grodd, this is all happening at essentially the reception area, the main gates of the Gotham Zoo, and there's actually a field trip filled with children, right? So immediately, all the player characters are there on scene, and I allowed them to position themselves anywhere they wished in order to fight, right? So what happens immediately is Jumper jumps in and immediately teleports as many kids as he can, and he made a roll, and he was actually able to save like 5 kids. They got in the center of them. They all kind of gathered near him, and he jumped them all out to like beyond the distance of the robot, and then he jumped back. Okay, so that was like in the first round. Then at that point, Rhino comes. Rhino actually charged Amazo, misses Amazo, and slams into the wall and makes a big old hole in the wall in the Gotham Zoo. Okay, Harley comes in and goes to strike Black Tarantula. She misses. Black Tarantula immediately counterstrikes Harley and paralyzes Harley. This is a terrible thing from a player's perspective. At this point, the rest of the combat, there's like 3 rounds of combat, and Harley continues to try to make con saves to be released from Black Tarantula's paralysis unsuccessfully. And Jumper even went over and assisted and gave an assist, which makes it easy. Okay, and in Index Card RPG, every scene has a difficulty. The difficulty, and so the difficulties in Index Card RPG go from 7 to 20, and the overall scene, the location difficulty was 12, right? So you would need to roll a 12 to succeed at whatever you were trying to do, and then you get to add your stat bonuses, which are all really exactly like D&D stat bonuses, right? So on a con, you would get to roll your plus, so you would be shooting for a 12, right? If your con is 2 plus 2, you're going to need a 10, and then when Jumper assisted Harley, that made that roll easy, which is a -3. So all Harley needed was a 7 on a 20, right? And just round after round after round, John, the player, failed those rolls and had no, and so Harley was just shut down immediately by Black Tarantula, and which was kind of sad because you hate to see a player sit there. But also, I'm not going to fix that in game because, literally when I'm running these campaigns, I will set up a situation where a player character can die. I'm always more than happy to have a player character die in any scene. And the reason why is, especially with a game like Index Card RPG, the creation of the player characters is so easy and so fast, that it's not like other games. And in addition to that, I like villains to have bite. Like, villains should have bite, right? So I was sad to see John not be able to do any combat at all, which is, and it was a good long, hour-long scene. And it was just rough to see, but it happens. And so here's what happened with everybody else. Jericho gets in position and makes eye contact with King Shark, takes King Shark's body over, and is now in control of King Shark. Jericho also then takes King Shark and goes and does battle with, specifically with, goes and does battle directly against Gorilla Grodd, right? And actually, and puts in some good licks, right? Amazo gets in there and gets some good licks on Gorilla Grodd as well. And then finally, King Shark actually knocks Gorilla Grodd out. Okay. Now, once that, and then also along this line, also, the rest of the characters spend a lot of time stomping on and dodging Viper's vipers, right? Which they never got hit by a single one of Viper's vipers. But they were the most deadly thing in the scene by far. So they did D8, they did a D6, but on your next, they did D6 damage, but it didn't really matter. One scene after you, one turn after you were hit by their poison, you immediately made a death. You actually dropped to 0 and you just make a death save. Period. Like, you make your roll. The way you die in Index Card RPG is you roll a D6. And that is the number of rounds in which, if you have not been stabilized, you are dead, right? Now, any player can come over and go, "Don't die, buddy," and that actually allows you to re-roll. That actually stabilizes you, right? And you're no longer bleeding out. But you can die very distinctly and very easily within an Index Card RPG. So, which I love. I think it's a really elegant mechanic. It's really well done. So these guys were, doing the best they could to fight, and keep up. And so Gorilla Grodd so King Shark is controlled. Gorilla Grodd is taken out. And then at that point, once everybody sees that Gorilla Grodd is down and that King Shark's no longer fighting with them, Cheetah and Viper and Black Tarantula and Rhino, all who have traded some blows with some of the other characters, they decide to jet out, and so they all try to escape. Well, Muncher jumps in, and by the way, so one of the things that was done to control Rhino and also Viper to some extent was that Muncher did consume Muncher consumed a monkey there at the zoo, right? Who was out for display to talk to the children. And that allowed his special ability to trigger. And his special ability was a 30-foot kaiju, which I actually know that's kind of small for a kaiju. But a 30-foot kaiju came out about the size of a Tyranitar, right? And very much looking like a Tyranitar, but not specifically a Tyranitar. Actually did battle with some of the members of the Animal Kingdom, the new supervillain, animal-themed supervillain group, right? So it was a really fun combat, and then it ended. What ended up happening is when Jericho. By the way, Jericho was definitely the MVP in my opinion, because he used his eye control to take over King Shark, taking out one villain, and then beat down Gorilla Grodd with the help of Amazo. Jumper was really acted like a hero and really saved a lot of people, helped Harley, helped people, there. The last thing that happened in the round was all four of the people who are not Gorilla Grodd and King Shark, they start running. Muncher jumps up and said, and I said, "Hey, do you want to, that's another thing." So Animal Kingdom had released the entire tiger, the entire lion cage area. So there are like 6 lions running around. And so the superheroes had to shut down keeping the lions from killing people, which they were able to do. They were made sure there were no public casualties. And they actually took down the lions in a way that did not kill the lions, which was even more super heroic. And the last thing that happened in the scene was that Cheetah was trying to escape, right? And actually all those 4 were escaping. And Muncher said, I'm going to stop helping these. I'm going to try to capture one of these villains. And so he was able to capture Cheetah. So the final count was Cheetah and Killer Shark and Gorilla Grodd all captured. And then the ones who escaped were Black Tarantula, Viper, and there was one more in there. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on who that last one was, but Viper and Black Tarantula and Rhino. Rhino was the other one that escaped, and then the people who were captured were Gorilla Grodd and King Shark and Cheetah. And then of course Gotham Zoo was saved. There were no civilian casualties, and all the animals were okay. So it was really good. I was very impressed with the ending. It was really fun. Index card RPG, absolutely fantastic. As far as building out and giving the structure for how to build out an actual player character from DC or Marvel, both the Margaret Weis's Marvel game was fantastic, and also the DC Mutants and Mastermind gave a lot of structure there, helped me to give limits. So one of the things that I was using was just the different levels of heroes. We actually got a kind of a consensus on that, where street level, a betweener, a superhero, a planetary, a Skyfather, a universal, and a multiversal level. And so what we did was, within Index Card RPG, you get 6 points to build out all your stats, and then we gave 1 extra point for how far you went up on that scale, right? And it worked out really well. It was really a lot of fun. That was just the first segment of the Amelthia story arc. It was the first major combat scene. Once King Shark, Gorilla Grodd, and Cheetah were captured, all the players took those prisoners up to the Justice League. Harley was recovered. She was brought conscious, and then she was taken up into the she was taken up into the skies, of course. Actually, they were taken up to the Watchtower, and all 3 of those supervillains were imprisoned within the Watchtower, and that's where we'll break this segment, and then I'll let you know the next thing that happened in the game was the Justice League Tribunal, and so our next segment will be about the Justice League Tribunal. Thank you very much.